Hey everyone, it's Andy from Figment, and I'm joined today by Josh, who you may also know as Dojmos, or however you pronounce it. You can tell me how you pronounce it, from Chainapsis, and also the product Keplr. So welcome, Josh. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I always just love talking about the products we build, talking about the Cosmos ecosystem, and yeah, a lot of kind of exciting things, which there's a lot going on, I think, more
Yep.
so than ever before. So yeah, really looking forward to this. And it's kind of, yeah, discussing my ideas, how I see things, uh, some of the challenges, and then how, we would like to enable not just ourselves, but allow others to kind of be part of the solution and be part of the growth for not just Cosmos, but the crypto ecosystem at large.
Yeah. Very good. Like you said, there's a lot going on in the Cosmos ecosystem. There's a lot going on in many of the blockchains that people have been building and building. And so it's sort of a funny headspace for me right now because some part of the community is very down because prices have changed. But the other part of the community is very, very excited because so much stuff is now coming out. So yeah, I'm much more on the builder side. Price I don't really look at very often, but yeah, I definitely want to talk about some of these things. And so really quickly, can you give us an overview of what is Chainapsis, what role do you play in Cosmos, and what is Keplr?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think I can kind of start off with myself first. I kind of
Yes,
started off
please.
with helping kind of organize a lot of the early Cosmos communities since 2017. I organized a lot of the meetups. I've been part of the kind of testnet, Gaia testnet processes, helping translate a lot of the kind of news resources. And yeah, ever since then, I've just been really deeply immersed into this Cosmos ecosystem. It's been, I guess, almost 4 years now, and loving it, every day, even more so. And one thing led to another where I think I was more of just organizing communities, helping provide resources, kind of undo the language barrier that exists. And eventually one thing led to another where I kind of got more into a product role. And yeah, and I met my amazing co-founder. His name is Tony, and he tends to be a little quiet. He's not as public, but he's an amazing developer. Does probably 3 engineers worth of work by himself. And yeah, we decided it's like, hey, let's start a company, and what our goal is to basically provide the tools and infrastructure that's needed for builders to build and for users to kind of use any applications that's being built within the Cosmos ecosystem easier. And yeah, and for us, I think the kind of easiest and the biggest missing piece at the time was a wallet, not just a wallet in the sense that you're managing assets, but kind of going beyond that and yeah, and just kind of doing applications, signing, filling in that gap where MetaMask kind of allows any app to be built and users to access it instantly. And we were kind of thinking, obviously there's a lot of differences because Cosmos is inherently interchain, but we will start seeing a lot more applications emerging out. And this was, I think, back in late 2019 or so when we kind of discussed this idea, and eventually we decided, okay, let's build it out, see what happens. And yeah, we launched Keplr Q1 of 2020, and it's been a year so far, and we have nearly 70,000 users right now, 13, 14 chains. And yeah, and definitely falling behind in terms of it being able to integrate the change just because the growth of the ecosystem has been so quick. So yeah, it's been amazing kind of how our thesis played out and being kind of validated. Yeah.
Let's zoom in on Keplr, and you said you had a thesis here. So the Cosmos setup is there's many independent blockchains which are connected together. What is Keplr's role in that, and what is your sort of vision for how these chains will connect, and what the interface will be between those chains? How will users actually use that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the ultimate goal is for the interchain ecosystem to not feel any different than a single chain ecosystem. Because I think there are tons of benefits to things like, one chain stack where everything is on that same chain, all the applications are being deployed there. But obviously there are a lot of limitations. And I think one of the kind of biggest difficulties for an interchain system out of the many challenges are some of the user flow UI and UX, just because you are inherently dealing with different sovereign chains with kind of different requirements, different parameters, and things like that. And our goal is basically just to create a unified interface where interacting with an application on one chain doesn't feel any different from interacting with an application from another chain. And it kind of provides that users a level of familiarity. And at the same time, I think it's pretty important because a lot of these blockchain application developers are actually building blockchains. They're not necessarily trying to build user interfaces, and sometimes they simply don't have the resources to do that. And what our goal is to kind of enable permissionless innovation to happen, where they're able to leverage some of the toolings that we provide and kind of bring in users through that. And for users kind of, not have the issue where I would like to try using this app, but I can't because I don't know how to use the CLI or I'm not a developer. So yeah, kind of, I think reaching out to both sides, to the average user, but also to developers as well.
That makes sense. And so let's talk a bit about, our audience here are people who might be building a new blockchain. They might be building on top of blockchains. They might be building, some tooling and infrastructure. What are the components of Keplr? Of course, many people might know the browser extension, but there's probably a lot more going on behind the scenes. There's a website, some other things. For someone looking at building a wallet-like solution, what are all the different components they might need to consider?
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of breaking things down, it comes down to basically key management. It's kind of at the fundamentals of, where do you store your keys? How do you manage it? How do I kind of have access to it? And there's many ways to do it. Obviously, there's the private key, and you can derive a private key through a mnemonic, or you can use a hardware wallet. But a lot of it has advantages and disadvantages in terms of UX and security, because those kind of exist, I think, so far on a trade-off. And that's kind of one layer. And then the one above that, I think, is account management, which is completely different from keys, because keys is just, a set of letters and numbers that you sign with. Whereas account, it actually has, your assets, it's what you interact with the blockchain with, and there are transactions that are being signed, and you kind of have to verify that, and you have to be able to see what the status of your account is and things like that. Now, I think there's the application, which for us, I think it tends to be kind of a lot of the front ends, which includes the front end that we built, the wallet interface, but going beyond that into other applications where other people are even building staking interfaces, leveraging Keplr as a signing solution, account management solution, and even seeing DeFi being built on places like Secret Network, where they have AMMs, they have bridges that leverage kind of Keplr as a signing mechanism and things like that. So yeah, a lot of those components can be broken down, and Billy Rennekamp actually has a really great blog about talking about these things and what are some of the benefits of drawbacks to that. Keplr's thesis is that we would like to provide as much of a modular interface where the limitation, we try to not restrict any limitations, just because we know that developers like modularity, they like flexibility, and we believe that to bring in users, you need to have compelling applications. And for us, the goal is to reach out to these developers to build compelling applications in a far easier manner, rather than having to kind of do that all by themselves. So I don't think ours stack is like vertically integrated. And what I mean by that is like things like Argent, where they kind of abstract a lot of the things. The UX is really nice. So I think that's kind of one of the trade-offs that we have. But at the same time, what Keplr allows you to do, and now that it's integrated to tools like Starport, you could basically spin up a new Cosmos chain with IBC enabled, and then you can just instantly add that chain into Keplr, and that's about it. Like, and users can use their own Keplr to connect to your chain as well. So modularity, flexibility, not restricting developers on what they can and can't do. So yeah.
Got it. And so from an architecture perspective, is there a big database you have somewhere with all the users in it, or is this more about interface to the chain and users are sort of storing things in their local browser or wherever their keys are? How should someone think about sort of the architecture behind something like this?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually a really great question, because I think I've never really got to explain this out in public, and a lot of people ask us, it's like, So I guess the short answer is we don't have a database. And a lot of people ask us, why don't you guys do that? Because once the chain gets big, once the user gets a lot, like you guys will run into issues. And this was actually a pretty intentional decision from our end, because maybe it's kind of our philosophical approach that we believe that the blockchain is the database. Maybe it's not the fastest, it's not the most efficient database, but it is a database. And for us, if we're having to restrict developers of front-end applications, or maybe developers of chains to deploy not just the chain, but also maintain a database, that's additional resources that they would have to spend on building this out, maintaining things, operating it. And our idea is just kind of the wallet has to be plug and play. So you have a chain, you just have an endpoint. And once you kind of, enter a bunch of parameters that Keplr needs to know kind of the basic, what are the tokens called, where are the endpoints, and things like that, you just kind of instantly have a wallet, and you get to say, basically sign any type of arbitrary transaction that this blockchain wants you to sign. So yeah, that's kind of an intentional decision. We haven't had too many issues in terms of overloading so far. And I think, maybe we can get into some of this DataHub thing as well, because I think we've been able to find some scaling solutions that doesn't require a database. Maybe it's not the most efficient, but actually I think it fits us really well in terms of the philosophy where you're a small chain, you want to get started, you don't need to run a database. But if you're a bigger chain, then there is a way to kind of scale that and manage a lot of users as well. So.
Yeah. Thanks for the shout out to DataHub. So we have had a chance to work with Josh and his team on a couple different networks to provide this access. So as you mentioned, Josh, your approach is the blockchain is the database, and then sort of the bottlenecks emerge differently, right? So access to the blockchain, access to full nodes. Really scaling that up is a huge challenge because you don't know where requests are coming from. A lot of the paradigms you might use for scaling a Postgres database are different and don't apply here. So just sort of different challenges. So yeah, I really enjoyed working with you on some of those things. It's pretty challenging in some of these networks that are pretty resource intensive, and we've learned a lot about running full nodes. But I've liked working with you on some of those things. So that's great. I have a question for you. You mentioned MetaMask. And some people think about, Keplr is like MetaMask for Cosmos. But the more I study it, I think there's much more that Keplr can do. When I think about MetaMask, I think really about showing a balance and signing a transaction. And usually that transaction is a transfer. What are the unique things that being in the Cosmos ecosystem, the way Keplr is set up, what are the unique things that Keplr could do or is doing to interact with blockchains?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think because our core philosophy is modularity and flexibility and thinking with developers in mind, there's actually two features that I think we developed ahead of MetaMask that MetaMask actually adopted later on. And we love to see that because I think these two features are kind of the two things that came out of us thinking about an interchain ecosystem. And now that Ethereum is becoming a lot more connected to layer 2s and other side chains and things like that, MetaMask is also kind of evolving in that way. And one of those features was basically kind of suggesting a chain, a front end saying, this is my token, this is the information. Could you ask the user if they'd like to add this to their wallet? And then second was adding a new chain to the wallet prior to the suggest chain feature, where the front end basically just kind of gives you all the information you need to the wallet, and then all the user has to do is just click approve, and that chain is added to their wallet. They have to manually input the RPC address, chain IDs, and things like that. And maybe some of these users don't even know what an RPC is, right? Right. And features like these kind of come from our background of thinking in the context of a multi-chain environment, multi-chain ecosystem. And I think we'll see a lot of opportunities emerge out of this as well. I think one of the kind of revolutions that MetaMask had was when they started aggregating different type of AMMs and swaps within their wallet, and they were able to monetize that really well while kind of staying neutral as well. I think we'll see a lot of these opportunities, exponentially more opportunities in a multi-chain environment, because you're going to see maybe SushiSwap might have a DEX on 5 different chains, and maybe some of these have different amount of liquidity, or maybe some of them actually are all just different vouchers of Ether with different value at times and things like that. And yeah, if DEX aggregator was kind of the first step to wallets evolving into a more utilitarian role, I think multi-chain environments, things like staking derivatives, tokens across different chains, vouchers and things like that, it's going to provide a lot more space for wallets to evolve and provide additional utility beyond just kind of asset management and transaction signing.
Yep. So I know that Chainapsis, the company, has done more than Keplr. And so I want to give you a brief moment just to discuss any other things you've worked on or want to call attention to. One that I think you worked on in the past was interchain accounts. And so maybe you just want to kind of give a brief overview of the other things Chainapsis has worked on sort of in support of this vision which you've articulated.
Absolutely. So interchain accounts, all it is that it just allows a chain to control a remote account on a different chain that's connected by IBC. And I think for us, the way we like to describe it is it's a poor man's cross-chain smart contract. Because IBC right now, I think it's kind of still in its early phases where it's still a protocol. There's not a lot of application layer protocols being built yet. But a lot of times, to access the application from a different chain, all you have to do is just the same permission that the user, like a user account, can do, right? And we're just basically giving this permission to a chain and letting this chain, automate that, maybe create some logic around it where the user can, do something and things like that. And some of the use cases that we thought could emerge out of this was, DAOs that have stake across multiple chains that are able to actively stake, be part in governance, rather than having to have, if you want to vote, if you have atoms and you need to have it on your chain, those are kind of just sitting on your chain. You're not really able to stake, participate in governance, although you do have ownership. Now, what you can do is just create an interchain account on the Cosmos Hub that is controlled by your chain, your DAO, and you're still able to stake, vote through this governance process within your chain. What you can also build is staking derivatives, liquid staking, where you're able to create vouchers, fungible vouchers for assets that are staked. So, I think we're going to see this emerge a lot more when a lot of these yield farming DeFi starts popping up in Cosmos, where people are going to unbond atoms and different type of assets if this DeFi yield is way higher than the staking yield. Now, the ideal scenario, I think, is, we kind of let those staking assets be staked and we just collateralize a voucher that's kind of one-to-one pegged to the staking asset. And those can be basically used in DeFi. So it's kind of a win-win for both sides. And beyond that, if there's a remote smart contract that you want to call, you can use interchain accounts to kind of do that and then get the results, maybe send some tokens back. So we're basically trying to create a very simple way and also a very flexible way to connect different chains beyond just transferring tokens and more in the application use cases as well. That being said, we're not actually actively maintaining that right now. We kind of handed that off to Interchain GmbH in Berlin, who's their awesome team is actually kind of in the process of kind of finalizing revising some of the specs, making sure it's production ready to bring to the hub. And I think this has kind of increased the amount of composability that exists with the IBC and Cosmos kind of multi-chain ecosystem at large.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, do you think interchain accounts will be something that will be brought onto the hub eventually, or is it still more in the sort of research phase?
I think it's almost, in terms of the spec, I think it's ready. We did, the first spec was kind of back in 2019, where even the IBC spec wasn't finalized. There was another pass with contributors such as Sean King from Interchain GmbH, Ethan Fry from Confio, who kind of modified it to make it more secure as well. And I think we're kind of I believe it's at the final stages of development, making sure it's production ready. And it should be included in the next, 2 or 3 releases of the Cosmos SDK. And hopefully that would be accepted by Cosmos Hub governance and eventually deployed on the hub.
Great. Great. Okay, great. I have a couple of questions sort of looking ahead to the future a bit. We've received a couple of questions as we're preparing for this, and so I want to ask a couple of those now. One was, of course, we all know Keplr as a browser extension. What about mobile? Any plans for Android, iOS?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's actually in the works right now. I'm wondering if I can show that right now. It's still a little bit, it's not in the best state. We're still working through it. It's like early alpha, but
there you go.
It
exists
there in terms of, you can send different tokens, you can stake, vote on governance. We're working on kind of finalizing some of the UX and working on adding some of the more advanced like Keplr specific features, such as maybe suggest chain, wallet connect, and a few things, token management, IBC, and things like that. Right. But yeah, it's coming. And I think we made tremendous progress in the past 2 months or so in bringing this live. And what I love about it is I think we're keeping our philosophy of modular flexible wallets. And our goal is that while the browser extension is one way to interact with blockchain applications, you shouldn't be limited to a desktop computer or a laptop. You should be able to do that on your wallet as well. So yeah, our mobile wallet is more focused on interacting with blockchain applications, more so than just simply managing assets. And and I think this is actually right in the kind of direction of where the crypto market is going, crypto applications are going as well. So.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. The other question I had, sort of looking ahead to the future, is it seems like Keplr is available on a number of Cosmos chains. You've already integrated a bunch of them. It looks like you're sort of prepackaged into Starport, or I forget the name of it. Was that Starport, or where every new chain you can roll out with Keplr already? Mm-hmm. What about other projects that might want to integrate with Keplr? What's the best way to work with you? Do you do things on a grant basis? Do you do things based on what you think is interesting? Like, how could a team work with the Keplr team?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of grants and if we find things interesting as well. I think so far we've been a little bit like under-resourced, but we've been able to kind of amp up on hiring in the past month or so, that we have new resources coming in, new people kind of being able to help us. Just get in touch with me on Telegram or Keplr channel, Twitter, any way possible, and do let us know, what makes your application compelling, because I think there's a lot of work that's being done in the background of making sure that the wallet keeps up to the changes and the improvements to the chain. And we want to support your vision of building a highly compelling, highly available, with a lot of usage, blockchain application with a lot of usage. And do reach out to us. Love to talk about it. And if for some reason, we're not able to kind of support that right now, obviously integrating kind of Keplr to your front end, to your application, is completely permissionless. Right. If you go to docs.keplr.app, we kind of have a brief documentation of how you can do that. And maybe you can just kind of start off with that and use that as a starting point of, this is how we use Keplr, and this is the amount of traction that we were able to receive. Now we're ready for something bigger, and would like to kind of collaborate closer with our team. And for us, our goal has always been to kind of enable the product that all the other builders are building, and kind of be a part of that process of growth as well.
Makes sense. Yeah. So I have two more questions for you. The first is, you've been deep in this community for a long time, and it seems like you've always had a finger on the pulse of what's coming next. What are you excited about that's coming to the Cosmos ecosystem now?
Yeah, definitely Gravity Bridge.
Gravity Bridge,
the biggest missing piece for the Cosmos ecosystem. And what it enables is a lot of high quality assets to travel through Cosmos. And it also sets Cosmos up to be not just a layer 2. I think Cosmos as a layer 2 is compelling, but there's so much more than that, because there is a lot of activity within the ecosystem, and already useful applications that have been built. So I think that is one big thing that's coming up that I can't wait. And we're finally, with the emergence of IBC, we're seeing finally DeFi kind of sprout up. And this is definitely going to bring up the amount of activity that happens on these chains, across chains as well, and which will hopefully eventually lead to developments such as staking derivatives, interchain staking, and who knows what that's going to come up, whether that's in the form of new communities that leverage these DeFi protocols and assets, or a friendly connection to Ethereum where they're able to offload some of the kind of compute-intensive, gas-expensive resources to Cosmos, while still being able to access and use kind of their favorite assets that they would like. So, I think those in that order so far.
Okay, that's great. Okay, the last question I have for you is a question I ask everyone always at the end, which is the magic wand question. If you had a magic wand and you can wave it, and tomorrow change anything about Keplr or Cosmos or the blockchain system, blockchain sort of world in general, what would you do with the magic wand as I hand it to you?
That's a great question, and I think I was meant to think about that while I was answering some of these questions, and I completely forgot. But I think one thing I would really love is, I don't know if everyone speaking the same language would be the right thing, but it'd be really amazing if people were able to communicate without the kind of barriers of language. Because I've seen that what makes crypto and blockchain so interesting is that it's like a permissionless, borderless technology that has no borders, right? And but one border that I've seen throughout my time in crypto is that a lot of the resources aren't available in different languages. Access to developer pools and things like that are restricted, maybe not because they're a bad developer, but they simply can't communicate. And crypto is a very English-driven ecosystem, no doubt about that. But I think the impact of what we're building can be exponentially amplified if we were able to kind of communicate ideas where the people that are in crypto are just as borderless as the technology that we're trying to build as well. So I think that would be my magic wand.
Wow, awesome answer. I've not had anyone take it there yet, but I like that. I understand the sort of goal of what you're after. Okay, great. Well, hey, this has been really good, Josh. I've learned a ton. I've got to ask some of my questions I've been waiting to ask you, and so I'm even more excited about what's next for Keplr. I'm excited about what's next for Cosmos, and I can't wait to see what comes next out of Chainapsis. Any parting thoughts or anything any place you'd like people to go to learn more, or anything you want people to do?
No, I don't think so. Please feel free to follow us on Twitter. We'll be releasing Keplr Mobile soon, probably in a form of closed beta. And we want to hear what features you guys would like us to build as well. And maybe it won't be built as quickly as everyone wishes it could be, but it's always good to know some of the priorities that we should be working on from community feedback and things like that. And I've seen a lot of tremendous growth in the crypto ecosystem, not just in the amount of people there are, but just qualitative knowledge, the discussions as well. And I can't wait where this is going to be, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, where the early products that we're building has long-term impact on the world as well.
Very good. Well, I'm setting a calendar appointment. I'll send it to you right after this, June 1st, 2031. We'll check back in, see how we did the last 10 years, Josh.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that.
All right. It's great talking to you. Chat soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.